The fall of a republic is never loud. It does not come with blaster fire in the streets or banners raised in open defiance. It comes quietly, in the form of laws passed under the guise of order. In the slow erosion of freedoms, so subtle that by the time people realize what has been taken, there is nothing left to defend. Tyranny does not need to conquer through war. It thrives in the space where fear replaces resistance, where silence becomes survival, where people learn to obey before they ever think to ask why. History does not remember the moments when oppression begins. It remembers when the people decide they have had enough. The rebellion was not born out of ambition or conquest. It was born out of necessity, a desperate refusal to accept that the galaxy would belong to a man who saw its people as nothing more than tools to be used and discarded. Empires do not last forever, no matter how unshakable they seem. Even the most absolute power trembles in the face of those who refuse to kneel. Palpatine did not take control of the galaxy in a single day. He made himself necessary first. He turned war into opportunity, chaos into justification, democracy into an illusion. He did not seize power. He was given it, by those afraid to imagine what would happen if they said no. And when his rule became unbearable, when the weight of oppression crushed the spirit of the people, the choice became clear. Suffer under the boot of an empire, or fight. But rebellion is not an easy path. It demands sacrifice, patience, and the willingness to stand, even when defeat seems certain. The Empire did not fear weapons, it feared ideas. It feared voices, too loud to silence, movements too strong to break. And when one person stood, another followed, and another, until the impossible was no longer a dream, but a reality. Empires rule through fear. Rebels fight through hope. And hope is a fire that no tyrant can ever truly extinguish. In this video, we will explore the truth behind the fall of freedom and the rise of rebellion. We will uncover how tyranny took hold of the galaxy, how a handful of individuals defied impossible odds, and why the duty to resist oppression never truly ends. This is not just the story of Star Wars, it is the story of history, the story of power, and the story of those who refuse to let fear decide their fate. They never take it all at once. They whisper of security, of peace, of the greater good. The Republic was promised safety in exchange for obedience, and for a time, people believed it. But the moment one law is passed to silence dissent, another follows to strip away choice. The Jedi warned of this. They sensed the shift long before the Senate ever felt the weight of the chains. Yet when they spoke, they were silenced, labeled as traitors, and hunted like criminals. They were the first to fall, and their fall was met with thunderous applause. But what happens when the guardians of peace are no more? Darkness does not arrive with a declaration. It seeps in like a slow-moving tide, drowning all that once stood in its way. It blinds men with promises of order and justice, while tightening its grip around their throats. By the time they realize the walls have closed in, it is already too late. Yet, tyranny thrives on one thing above all: silence. And silence, once accepted, becomes submission. It was not a single act that birthed the Empire. It was 1,000 quiet moments where good people chose to look away. Power is never enough. The more one holds, the more one fears losing it. And fear, it twists the mind, making enemies out of allies and threats out of shadows. It is why Palpatine did not stop at ruling. He had to control, to crush, to erase any thought of defiance before it could ever begin. A tyrant does not see loyalty. He sees tools, weapons to be wielded until they are no longer useful. The stormtroopers, once proud warriors of the Republic, became faceless enforcers, stripped of identity and purpose. The Senate, once a symbol of democracy, became a hollow stage for a single voice. One man's will, spoken through 1,000 trembling hands. But tyranny cannot survive without deception. No empire openly calls itself a cage. It convinces its people they are free while binding them in rules, so suffocating that even the air they breathe is not their own, and those who dare question it, they are made to disappear. Palpatine did not conquer through force alone. He conquered through fear, through lies, through the slow erosion of will. He did not need to burn every planet to the ground. He only needed to make the people believe that resistance was hopeless. But hope does not die so easily. It hides in the hearts of those who refuse to kneel, waiting for the right moment to rise. It took one voice, one spark, to light the fire. The moment the first man said no, the Empire's victory began to crack. It was never about winning battles. It was about proving that the Empire was not invincible. When Saw Gerrera led his first ambush, when Hera Syndulla refused to bow, when the Ghost first disappeared into the stars, the impossible became possible, a scattered few against an empire. And yet, they endured. The rebellion was never born from strength. It was born from desperation, from loss, from the unbearable weight of watching everything good in the galaxy be torn away. And yet, even in their weakest moments, they had something the Empire never could: purpose. The more they fought, the more they proved that fear was a lie, that the Empire's grip was not unbreakable, that freedom, once fought for, could never be truly extinguished. The rebellion was not an army. It was a reminder. To stand against tyranny is to invite suffering. The Empire did not fight fairly. It did not honor the rules of war. It hunted, it tortured, it made examples out of those who dared resist. And yet, for every rebel they struck down, 2 more took their place. There were no guarantees in rebellion, no certainty that tomorrow would come. Many fought, knowing they would never see the victory they dreamed of. And still, they fought. They fought because the alternative was unthinkable. A life in chains, a future dictated by fear. Some lost everything. Families shattered, homes burned, names erased from history as if they never existed. But a name forgotten is not a name lost. The rebellion carried their memory forward, each battle fought in their honor. Each step forward, paved with sacrifice. Victory was never promised, but to surrender was to accept that the Empire had already won. And that was something no true rebel could ever accept. Empires do not fall in a single moment. They unravel, thread by thread, until the weight of their own corruption pulls them apart. The Death Star was meant to be the Empire's final statement, a weapon so powerful that no one would ever dare defy them again. But in their arrogance, they failed to see the cracks. They underestimated the power of those they had spent years trying to break. They believed fear alone could hold the galaxy together. But fear is not loyalty. And fear, when pushed too far, breeds defiance. The moment the Empire became desperate, they had already lost. Desperation leads to mistakes. It makes tyrants reckless, blind to the truth, staring them in the face. Palpatine did not see the rebellion as a threat until it was too late. He did not fear Luke Skywalker until he stood before him, unshaken. And in the end, it was not a fleet, not a battle, not a war that ended the Empire. It was a single choice. One man standing at the edge of darkness, choosing to step back into the light. Because even the deepest shadow cannot stand against a single flicker of hope. Tyranny never truly dies. It changes faces, it shifts forms, but it is always waiting. Waiting for silence, waiting for compliance, waiting for good men to do nothing. And that is why rebellion can never rest. The Empire fell, but the fight did not end. There will always be those who seek power, who twist the law to serve themselves. The moment people forget, the moment they grow comfortable, history begins to repeat itself. To resist is not just to fight, it is to remember, to question, to never allow fear to dictate the future. The rebellion was not a war, it was a lesson. A warning written in fire and blood. Because when tyranny becomes law, rebellion is not a choice, it is an obligation.